Greetings, welcome back to my late night spook show here on the Horror Metal channel. I'm Hellhound, and the last video I did was a re-review of the first ever movie I reviewed on this channel, which was Fright Night, so check that out if you want. And now we're going to review another movie that I already reviewed earlier when I first started out like 5 years ago. That'd be the 1982 horror film Creepshow. Creepshow. So, yeah, this is one of the early videos I made reviewing this one, and we're going to go ahead and update it right now. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Yeah, this is a great anthology from two horror masters. Writer Stephen King and director George A. Romero came together to bring us this highly entertaining collection of 5 creepy tales in the tradition of the EC horror comics from the 50s, you know, Tales of the Grand Vault of Horror and all that. In addition to the 5 stories, there's also a wraparound segment featuring a young boy who tries to read his beloved Creepshow comic, as his abusive father, played by Tom Atkins, repeatedly takes it away. So the stories themselves range from either really great, mildly amusing, or just plain mediocre. I'm going to review each of them separately, so yeah. 5 stories, written by Stephen King and directed by George A. Romero. So yeah, let's go and jump right in. So the first segment is Father's Day, and in it, Aunt Bedelia, Vivica Lindfors, murdered her own father 7 years ago. Now, on Father's Day, his vengeful corpse returns from beyond the grave to torment her family of rich snobs while asking for his cake that he was promised before death. They never got it. So, other than a cool-looking zombie, this segment is pretty weak compared to some of the others. You know, it's not terrible or anything, but and the final frame definitely gives it a few extra points. Yeah, pretty cool-looking zombie, too, like I said. But other than that, I'm just kind of glad this is the first story so we can get it over with. It's just a little too basic and generic. There's just not much to it, honestly. But it's pretty cool. It's very, very short as well. So anyway, yeah, the second segment is The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill, starring Stephen King himself. A dim-witted hillbilly named Jordy Verrill, Stephen King, finds a fallen meteorite that he plans to sell and make a small fortune for himself. A slimy substance from the meteorite gets all over him and his house, and after a few days go by, a strange weed begins to grow from the substance and eventually covers the entire farm, including Jordy himself. Yeah, this segment is slightly better than Father's Day. The title gives away the sad ending, and Stephen King's over-the-top acting as a backwoods buffoon. Some people think it gets a little testing, but I think it's enjoyably hammy. You know, it's cheesy, but it's very fun to watch. It's a great premise, which are pretty cool-looking effects with the killer weeds that grow from the fallen meteor goop getting all over everything. Yeah, not bad, but yeah, it's definitely an improvement over the first segment, and gets the movie going pretty well. So the third segment is Something to Tide You Over, in it, Harry Wentworth, played by Ted Danson, and his girlfriend Becky Vickers, Galen Ross, are kidnapped and taken to a beach by Becky's vengeful ex-husband Richard, played by Leslie Nielsen, who is friggin' awesome. Yeah, Richard buries them up to their heads in the sand and succeeds in a elaborate revenge plot as the tide comes in and they both drown. So, unfortunately for Richard, Harry and Becky return as waterlogged zombies that stalk the murderous ex-lover all through his house. This is by far the greatest segment in this entire anthology. The acting from Leslie Nielsen and Ted Danson is great and very believable. The slimy seaweed-covered zombies were really creepy and made some great and intense and scary scenes. And yeah, Leslie Nielsen plays a delightfully evil villain, and while he, mostly became known for comedy later on, this was after Airplane, I believe, but before Naked Gun, you can really see that he definitely has the chops to pull off a more serious role. Yeah, he was just great in this. He really makes that segment, as well as the whole movie, really. Yeah, I can tell that King and Romero definitely put the most effort into this one, into Something to Tide You Over. Yeah, it's by far the best one. So yeah, next we have The Crate, the fourth segment. So The Crate is about a man named Henry Northrop, played by Hal Holbrook, who is sick to death of his overbearing and constantly nagging wife Wilma, played by Adrienne Barbeau. She treats him like crap, and he constantly fantasizes about killing her, and she's just a pain in the ass. So meanwhile, the janitor of the university has found a mysterious crate in the basement and accidentally unleashes the previously sealed away monster that was inside of it. So the monster eats people and it's very hungry. So Professor Dexter Stanley, Fritz Weaver, tries to stop the ravenous creature as Henry sees it as a perfect opportunity to kill his wife, who he just can't stand. He's just so sick of her. Yeah, so much that he wants to feed her to a man-eating beast. So, yeah, the scenes where he imagines himself killing her and everybody cheering are a riot. And, yeah, really cool-looking monster. Great acting by Hal Holbrook and everybody else. And, yeah, the really funny moments in which his imagination and stuff makes this one the second best. Yeah, the crate is the second best segment in this movie, next to Something to Tide You Over. Love it. It's a blast. And so the final segment, and probably the weakest, probably my least favorite, is They're Creeping Up on You, which is about a really wealthy guy, Upson Pratt, played by E.G. Marshall, who's a rich and reclusive tyrant who he lives in a somewhat futuristic-looking penthouse. Yeah, he treats his employees like crap and is generally mean to everybody he talks to. Yeah, he is deathly afraid of bugs, however, and his fear becomes a reality as cockroaches, who might be supernatural, invade his fancy apartment. Yeah, this segment is mostly just gross, as opposed to actually being scary. Yeah, the abusive tycoon main character is very unlikable, and it's very rewarding to see him get his just desserts, get his comeuppance, because he deserves it, because he's such a prick. But overall, this one is probably my least favorite, like I said, and would probably only be scary to someone who's afraid of bugs, which I'm not, again, it's just really, really gross. Yeah, especially the last frame, which it makes it a lot better, but still, it's kind of, it's very memorable, I give it that, but yeah, probably my least favorite segment. Yeah, anyway, fans of anthology films, comic books, or horror movies in general should definitely appreciate this great anthology from two of the greatest horror masters, King and Romero. See this movie mainly for Something to Tide You Over, which they should have probably saved for last, and definitely The Crate. But know that you'll also enjoy the other spooky tales, as well as the intricate wraparound segment. Yeah, all in all, with the 5 stories combined, this film would probably average out into, I'd say, at least an 8 out of 10. Maybe higher, really, because, yeah, there's Something to Tide You Over in The Crate are great. But yeah, that's Creepshow. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. And be sure to get this Blu-ray release, which was done by Scream Factory. It was a special edition. Comes with, I mentioned this in my last Loads of Lore video. Comes with a Blu-ray, comes with a booklet all about Stephen King and George Romero, their motivations for making the movie and how they're inspired by the EC horror comics and stuff like that. So pretty cool release. It's also packed with bonus features. So if you're going to own the movie, this is definitely the version to get for sure. Yeah, Creepshow. And yeah, it was followed by a sequel, Creepshow II, which I've already reviewed on this channel. But in case you don't want to feel like checking that out, let's go and recap real quick anyway. There's 3 segments this time instead of 5. An old Chief Woodenhead has an overly drawn-out setup with a somewhat rushed and disappointing payoff, but it's made all the more watchable by some really cool kills by a cigar store Indian statue, and a very entertaining performance by Holt McCallany, who's just, he's vain and arrogant, he's a total asshole, and you really want to root against him. You really want to see him get a punishment by the wooden Native American, which is really cool. But yeah, it could be better, but it's not bad. It's pretty memorable. I like it a lot. Then there's The Raft, which is by far the scariest, probably of all these segments, and easily the best one in Creepshow 2, which features a very interesting lake monster, kind of a blob type thing. It looks like it captures its victims and dissolves their flesh, trying to consume 4 partying college kids who go swimming that day. Yeah, by far the best segment of Creepshow 2, and maybe the scariest of all the segments in the first 2 films, really. Yeah, that one just had me. I read the original story that Stephen King wrote that it was based on as well. He wrote a lot of this, and it was actually directed by Michael Gornick, and George A. Romero worked on the screenplay too, I'm pretty sure, so Romero and King returned for this one, which was good. Yeah, then the final segment is the hitchhiker, which this is a little redundant, monotonous, and repetitive with predictable occurrences that basically happen over and over. But I do like how the ghostly hitchhiker who stalks the woman who accidentally ran him over looks more and more gruesome every time we see him. Kind of like the Jack's ghost in American Werewolf in London, sort of. But yeah, and there's also the absolutely abysmal... oh, by the way, definitely check out the Blu-ray of Creepshow II, done by Arrow Video, because it comes with a small comic of Pinfall, which was originally supposed to be a segment in Creepshow II, along with Cat from Hell, which eventually found its way to Tales from the Dark Side of the movie, which Stephen King and George Romero were also involved in. Yes, yeah, Pinfall, ghostly bowling team, pretty cool story, and I'm happy to own it in some form. So yeah, if you're going to own Creepshow II, this is definitely the version to get, for sure. It's packed with great features, and Arrow Video always does a great job, so definitely get that. And then, yeah, like I was saying, there's also the abysmal Creepshow III, but the less said about this piece of crap, the better. Yeah, let's just forget that this thing even exists, because it's god-awful. Yeah, screw this movie. The closest thing we'll ever get to a true third entry, despite not having the actual official title, is Tales from the Dark Side of the movie, which again, like I said, King and Romero worked on after the TV series of the same name, which is originally supposed to be a Creepshow TV series. It downplays the comic book angle, and the Creep doesn't host all the stories this time. But yeah, it's not an official Creepshow 3, but I'd rather consider that Creepshow 3 than that piece of crap that I just mentioned. So yeah, check out Tales from the Dark Side of the movie as well. Alright guys, well thank you for watching my video. I'm Hellhound. Definitely check out Creepshow if you haven't already. It's a great movie. And glad I redid this one, because the previous video, which I did like 5 years ago, was could have been a lot better. I think I did better this time, hopefully. So let me know in the comments. Yeah, check it out. Alright guys, thank you for watching my late night spook show here on the Horror Metal channel. I'm Hellhound, and until next time.